Is there anybody?
They joined on Facebook, so maybe there's a way to find us. Violet on it.
Ready to go? So we just have to take a look at it. So we're going to start in just a moment. We're just going to do a couple of last second checks to see if there's anybody in the parking lot. And I see there's a couple of folks online, so thank you for joining us. Let us know if you're having any audio problems and we'll be right with you. Public school, eh? So we're going to start in just a sec. We've got about 5 people online. Don't know how many will come and go. And I've just found out there's like a 5-second lag because of the joys of the internet between when I say something and what they hear. So that could be interesting. But otherwise, we'll get going. So good evening, folks. And thank you for joining the first of our ward boundary review and council structure sessions here for Chatham-Kent. My name is Sabine Matheson, and I'm going to be your facilitator tonight. I'm here with my colleague Hannah Tobias Murray, and we really appreciate you joining us. This meeting is going to be recorded for the purposes of allowing folks to see it throughout the review process. So the bad news, of course, of only having a few people in the room is that we only have a few people in the room. But the great news of having the technology is that the presentation will be of use to anybody who wants to see it on demand throughout the process. I want to thank the folks who are online. I will not be able to immediately be aware of what you're trying to tell us through the chat function, but there are folks here from the communications department at Chatham-Kent who are monitoring it. So if you want to send them a comment, they will receive it and it'll get transmitted up to me and we'll work it all out. I should also say I've just figured out that there's about a 5-second lag between when I say something and when you hear it online, which means that you would be about hearing what I just said now. So if you're trying to ask a question and it feels like we're never listening or rolling on without you hearing it, it's just the technology. It's not that we're failing to respond. I'm just going to begin with a land acknowledgement, as is the custom here in Chatham-Kent. We acknowledge that we are on the lands of the Anishinaabe Nation. This spot where we gather is the traditional land of the Three Fires Confederacy, the Odawa, the Potawatomi, and the Ojibwe. We also recognize that this land is now home to the Delaware Nation. This land was settled through the McKee Purchase Treaty of 1790, and we as beneficiaries of the treaty must recognize our responsibilities, including our collective responsibilities to the land and water. So just a couple of quick facilitation reminders. Our goal here is to create an environment where all perspectives can be shared, and like frankly, we want to hear what you think. That's the whole reason we're doing this. And I should say that at this stage of the process, we're not actually here to do anything more to you than describe the process and some of the rules that drive it, because this is a highly regulated process. The courts have rules and we're here to follow those rules. So this is an opportunity to hear from you, and the opportunity is going to go on for a few weeks. But of course, this is a Chatham-Kent meeting, which means that we are all bound by the code of conduct of the Chatham-Kent, and so we certainly welcome all questions and comments. But as you can see, and I won't be reading everything at you that's on the slides because you can read faster than I can talk. But of course, we have to maintain and create a safe space for everybody who's participating. So I'm just going to take you through a few of the background aspects of a ward boundary review. and then we'll get into hearing from you and the more interesting stuff. The, the municipality of Chatham-Kent, it provides all kinds of important services, you know them well. It's often said the amazing thing about local government is if they didn't show up for work on a particular day, you know it almost immediately, whether it's roads or fire or parks and rec or local planning or economic development. A lot of the things that are most important to you directly are delivered through the local municipality. You have an elected council. There's a mayor and there's 17 councillors, and they're elected every 4 years. The mayor gets elected at large. That means that everybody in Chatham-Kent votes for the mayor. The councillors are elected by ward, and that means only the people in the ward elect them. You've got one kind of unique thing in Chatham-Kent, which is you've got 2 councillors from 4 of the wards. You've got 3 councillors in Ward 2, and you've got 6 in Ward 6, and for a total council of 17 plus 1 is the mayor. The purpose of this meeting is because Chatham-Kent is reviewing both its council structure and its ward boundaries. That means we're to take a look at the size and structure of council. That's like the number of how many you have, and the potential role of an elected deputy mayor. How they're elected, because under the Municipal Act, you can either elect them at large or you can elect them by ward. You can also elect them by a mixture of the two. And then the ward boundaries themselves. So that's where we get out the maps and start drawing lines and saying, how can we come up with the fairest or most sensible way of dividing things up? Now, we're not supposed to just get it right for 2026, which is the next municipal election. We're supposed to get it right for 2026 and 2030, which means it's a bit like curling. We're going to release these ward boundaries, but we've also got to kind of anticipate about how they're going to evolve as the population grows between now and 2030. So it's one part measurement of what we have now, and it's one part projection of where we're going to be in a few years. And as you know, Chatham-Kent is growing right now. Lots of people coming. So we have to be thinking about now and the future. Purpose of this meeting and of the whole process is to get feedback from your communities. That's why we're having 2 rounds of engagement plus an online survey. Best place to access the online survey is through the website Let's Talk Chatham-Kent, and you can get that survey there, and there'll be more details about that. But you can follow along through the survey if you wished, or you can look at it at the end. And of course, this is all preparatory for the election that's going to be held on Monday, October 26, 2026. I don't know how many shopping days there are between now and then, but it's coming up soon. And the interesting thing is, the reason we have to do this now, it may seem like, why are we having a meeting about this in the middle of the summer in 2024? Well, because the boundaries have to be settled by January 1st of the election year. So if we're going to change them, and I say if, because our job is to review them, no one's decided that they're going to change yet. It has to be all complete by the end of December of 2025. So that's why we're doing it now. The biggest reason to conduct the review is because the current boundaries haven't been changed since they were drawn 25 years ago at the time of amalgamation. And there's been a lot of growth since then. Ward boundaries are important because, as you can see, they have an impact on the elected representatives that you have, and all those services that I talked about, they wind up getting influenced in how they are delivered and all the governance choices that you make by the people who you elect. So how we elect them is really, really important. As communities grow and evolve and as population grows, it's common that sometimes boards grow at a different rate. Chatham, the town, might be growing at a faster rate than Wallaceburg, or on the other hand, some other part out by Tilbury or whatever could be growing faster than it used to. And so it's always important to make sure that the ward boundaries we have reflect our needs today, but history matters. And so I'm going to get into all those different pieces. So the review process is the consultants, that's us. We're going to undertake broad public consultations. We're also going to do a lot of math. We're also going to do a lot of work with GIS mapping and show where the people are coming. We're going to look at the forecasts of where they're expected to come. And we're going to seek input from people about where the boundaries ought to go and what would make sense. The ultimate decision to make any changes That's in the hands of council. Our job is to make recommendations about where they might want to go. And as I mentioned, and as we'll discuss further, our recommendations have to be driven by a set of policy and legal considerations, which all ward boundary exercises have to follow. So we're here to implement those to the letter. And as you can see here, there's the specific Let's Talk Chatham-Kent project site and on the municipal website at chathamkent.ca, where you can find the survey as well as other information that we're going to speak about. Just an invitation to stay involved. I probably made that point well enough. So let's jump right in. The first part is about council structure. And as you can imagine, it's way easier to divide Chatham-Kent into wards if you know how many wards you need to divide it into. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with how big a council do you want? And then once we've talked about that a little bit and gotten some input, then I'll talk a little bit more about the rules for drawing wards. And then we'll talk about whether there's any issues that you perceive with the wards today. And those could be issues about what you like about them. It could be issues that you don't like about them, whatever. And I just want to emphasize something. Please don't think that any of our questions are leading questions, that because we're asking something, it's because we have a predisposition or an opinion. It's quite the opposite. The statutory process, we're obligated to be neutral and up to approach it with an open mind. And because Chatham-Kent is allowed to think about each of the things that we're going to ask about, we have to ask all of them. And so, it might be that you'd say, oh, why would they ever ask that? Does that mean they want to do that? No, it means we have to ask that because we have to be open-minded and give people an opportunity to give opinion about it. If you all think it's a daffy idea, then we can move on. But we have to ask these things because what we can't do at this stage is shut off any of it. So the provincial rules about council structure are actually pretty simple. You gotta have at least 5, including the mayor. That's the smallest you could go on a council. And municipalities are allowed to review and set the size of their council within certain rules. The minimum allowable size, I just said, larger councils are permissible. There isn't actually a maximum. I guess the maximum would be what you think is sensible and how much you're prepared to pay. The head of council does have to be elected at large. There's no option there. But you can either elect councillors by ward, so you divide up CK into wards, however many that might be. You can do it at large, which means everybody votes for everybody, or you can do it by a combination of both by ward and at large. So what we did was we took a look at your current population, which is about 107,770. Now, that's an estimate based on the last census data arrived with StatCan, to which we've run it through a whole bunch of other data sets that are available. We're still working on trying to figure out the current population. There is actually no giant scoreboard in the sky which keep tracks of people as they come and as they go, but we're going to be finalizing our best estimate for the baseline over the next few weeks. There's data that can come from MPAC, which is the Municipal Provincial Property Assessment Corporation, and other sources. But it's about 107,000 now. And so what we did was we took all the municipalities in Ontario with a comparator, and we said, well, how many councillors do they have? And rather than looking at ones that are wildly different, we looked at the 26 that bracket Chatham-Kent, the 13 that are bigger and the 13 that are smaller. Now, the data for all 444 municipalities is available, but like the municipalities that are really little don't really matter by way of comparative. So what you see is of those, and the way you read this chart, Chatham-Kent is the orange square that you see on the far right. You've got 18 councillors, and we're 17 plus a mayor. The next in size is 15, 13. You can see there's 5 that have that size. And you'll see it, the columns are divided into single tier or lower tier. Single tier would be another city like Chatham-Kent where there's no county or no regional structure. So in a county structure like Elgin or or Essex, like Leamington is the lower tier, and then Essex County is the upper tier. But as you can see, the most common council size is 11 and 13. There are some also that are at 9. The interesting thing about we looked at Sudbury and we looked at sorry, I can't see my notes because of the prescription. It's what's the other one we looked at? It's yeah, Kawartha Lakes, which are both single tier, and they're the ones that are the closest in area. And what's interesting about that is like they're the ones of similar size, because what's unique about Chatham-Kent is Chatham-Kent is big. And Sudbury's big, and Kawartha Lakes are big. And can you help me, Hannah, what was the numbers? It's just on the, it's in the notes on the bottom of the page.
Yeah. So Kawartha Lakes in terms of
Kawartha,
councillors, 9.
9, and what's the area?
It's about 75,000.
So 9 and 75,000 for Kawartha Lakes, and Sudbury is?
For Sudbury, it's 161,000, and they had 13 councillors.
Yeah, so 161,013, and Kawartha Lakes was 9, but they're the ones that are similar geography. Because this is, when you think about how many you need, part of it, I'll just get your question just a second, part of it is how many, like how difficult is it to service the territory in terms of looking after the needs of the constituents. So like a place that could be a lot smaller, but had a much denser population, might be able to get away with a smaller council. A place that's a lot larger or that has other representational needs might need more councillors. So the first question we just wanted to ask is, have you got any thoughts on the size of your current council? Does it feel about right? Does it feel a bit big? Does it feel a bit small? Any thoughts? And we've got a first question. And did you, I'm just going to ask the folks from Chatham, did you want to run the microphone to folks who want to ask things, or do you just want me to do that? We are pretty small, but I don't want to get in front of the camera.
My first question would relate to the size, and you're comparing us to Kawartha Lakes and to Sudbury. I'm assuming that's not just the town of Sudbury?
No, it's the district.
District. But those are totally different. The size might be similar or bigger, but the amount of economic value generated throughout the non-urban areas would be totally different.
Oh, look, you're absolutely right. We said what's similar is their geographic size. There's lots of other points of comparison. The thing is, the really interesting thing about 444 municipalities is, how actually unique CK is among them. So your point is extremely well taken. Like, we're not saying, well, you should do what they do. We're just saying by way of comparison, other places that have a similar geography are served by, 9 or 13, but that doesn't mean that that's right for you. It's just a point of interesting comparison.
That's the biggest fear.
Oh, do you want to hold it up just a little closer?
Our biggest fear is it's hard enough to be represented in the rural area now. And in some of our rural councillors are more urban. So not all of our rural councillors in what I would call rural areas are rural wards are necessarily on the side of agriculture. So now we're afraid that might get worse.
Okay, you can leave the mic on. Any other comments or questions just at this level? Okay, we're just going to plow ahead. And what you'll see is my colleague Anna is taking digital notes in real time. This is sort of a trick we learned during COVID when you had to do these meetings virtually and you're used to putting yellow stickies up on the wall, and you couldn't because you had to do everything digitally. And now we found actually nobody could read my writing when we put yellow stickies up on the wall. So these are better. So that's how we do it now. So the second point of comparison is using those same 26 municipalities. What you see is the vast majority of them use a ward system. 20 of the 26 have a ward system. 2 of them use an at-large system, and 4 use a combination of wards and at-large. Usually where it's a combination, the at-large position, there's only one of them, and it's a deputy mayor position. There's really no right or wrong answer about what system is best. Advantages of a ward system, I say may include, because honestly, this is a matter of opinion, right? They may include that you may get better representation of diverse areas or a simplified process, because if you've got, potentially 20 or 30 candidates and everybody's got to vote for all of them, by the time you're down to your 17th choice for the 17th spot, you may not have a really strong opinion. So wards break that up to make it a more meaningful choice. Efficient division of responsibilities among councillors. Sometimes they say a place where everybody's elected at large can sometimes look like a bunch of 5-year-olds playing soccer, where they all follow the ball like a little swarm of bees. If you have 17 councillors all jointly and responsible for every single thing in the place, there's less division of labor. When you have them by wards, sometimes you get more accessibility and knowledgeability. Like the first commenter was saying, you want some representation for agriculture, you should have a ward that's drawn that way. Advantages of an at-large system are kind of its flip side. It may encourage a broader municipal-wide view. Voters may have a broader choice of candidates. All councillors are potentially interested in a resident issue, which isn't always a positive, but sometimes it is. And it also reduces the likelihood of acclamations. And in some communities, acclamations are a real problem. You get election after election where there's actually nobody running, and that can be an issue. That only happened in one ward here in the last election. Of course, the other thing is just geography. Chatham-Kent's big. And so the prospect of having everybody have to campaign ward or citywide is probably somewhat daunting. Now, I think there's a question from someone online, which I'll just get my colleague to read.
Yes, there is. We've got a question from Scott Kilbride. Are the other council members full or part-time?
The councillors here are part-time. And the vast majority of councillors are full-time across the province. There are some municipalities where I said part-time, right? Yeah. I'm sorry. That is a total slip of my, they are part-time. And the vast majority province-wide are part-time. And that was just a slip of the tongue. Seniors moment, I believe they call it. Is there another follow-up question from them? No. So any comments about the question of, are you interested in maintaining a ward system or at large or anything else? There you go.
I don't think we need one, but I guess.
No, you do for the online folks, not for me.
Okay, Scott, this is just for you. When you say they're all part-time, so when you've got your previous slide that showed that they're the 9 and 11, I think it was, or 9 and 12, where they average where most of the municipalities fall, would smaller numbers of councillors not have substantially larger income with that smaller number of councillors?
They might, I don't think for the purposes of this presentation, we could give you a direct comparison on costs or how much they're paid. But it's not uncommon for, councillors to have a representational burden, up to about 8,000-10,000 residents. That's like when you get around, once you start getting up in, like into Mississauga though, or Toronto, when you're getting 130,000, that is clearly full-time. Burlington's interesting. They have a council of 5. So they're at the absolute small end, and they have much larger wards. They're actually full-time, and they think it's great because what they say is, every meeting starts like at a business day kind of time of the day at 9:30. They go till 4:30. They don't try and run the affairs of the municipality like it's a after-hours club kind of thing. So they there's a lot of different opinions on this. But over the course, like when we write our full report on it, we'll be able to delve more into some of the answers that you're kind of probing for in your question.
Well, it seems like if you're paid more, you might attract a different combination of people if the amount that they're.
So I'm just going to stop you to get you speak on the mic because the folks online won't be able to hear you if you don't.
I said the thought is that if there's less councillors, that you wouldn't reduce your councillor's salary, you would spread the money out amongst them. So you have you might attract a different, like if we have like Ward 5 where there was only no one ran except the incumbents, maybe you'll have more people that would run, and maybe the type of people that run could be different.
Yeah, oh, no, for sure. And you'll note, we didn't comment on cost as being an issue one way or the other. So, other questions or comments?
One more from
Yep.
online here. Scott asked a follow-up question. He was wondering whether the counselors in the Court of the Lakes and Sudbury are full-time or part-time.
No, they're part-time too, I think. So, any other comments? Okay. If elections continue by ward, how many should be elected by ward? Now, this is a really interesting question in your context, because you can have the status quo based on population with the same wards, right? So Chatham, this urban area has got 6. You could ask us to break Chatham into 6 pieces, so that each ward was the same size, or you could ask us to break Chatham into 3 pieces, so that all of your wards had 2 councillors per ward. Or you could say, we don't care about all the wards having the same number of councillors, we like it just to find the way it is. And we could keep 6 in one and 3 in the other and 2 in the others. Wonder if you have any thoughts on this, because that's one of the sort of unique, interesting factors of the way it's designed in Chatham-Kent. And the microphone's just coming for you.
Thank you very much. I'm curious, have you got a format to lay on us tonight?
Nope.
Or
No.
are you asking us what we think?
So sorry you missed the start, because
I didn't get here when you started.
No. I'm just saying, I'm sorry I missed the start, because we do not have a format to lay on you tonight. This is the front end of the process, where we're just gathering opinions from you about what you think about the current system. So we're not presenting anything tonight about what the future should be. We're only asking you about how you like it the way it is. This is the first step of the process tonight. So the answer is no, we are not presenting a vision for the future tonight.
Thank you.
My fear is, when I look at the room, that there's 5 of us here that are not employees, that are residents. I guess everybody's a resident, so I apologize for that statement. But my fear is that we will become not heard, even if we have an opinion, because we don't represent much of our population here tonight.
So I think I just said a minute ago that this is part of an ongoing process. A lot of it's going to be driven through digital consultation through the survey. The reason why we're recording this is so that anybody can watch it on demand anytime they want. Through Let's Talk Chatham-Kent, people are going to be able to participate. We're going to be promoting this through the media, through as many channels as we can. And so we couldn't agree with you more that we want lots of people to participate. But the nice thing about being able to do stuff on demand is it doesn't require, there's 107,000 people here. If they'd all showed up tonight, I would have been in a serious mess because I only made 50 photocopies. So it would have been nice if we had 47 or 55 or 110, but even then we wouldn't have even had 1% of 1%, right? So the idea is to start getting ideas. Now, the other thing is, our job as professionals is to look for sore thumbs, right? Anything that you think that isn't working properly, or anything that you think that is, that you really don't want to change. But we're going to conduct our own analysis too, and then, to the point of the gentleman's question a minute ago, once we do have recommendations, I should think there'll be a lot more people coming out. So right now, you're just here to help us do our work tonight. And then the opportunity to talk about what the future might look like, I think will draw a lot more comment. But anything you can do through the OFA or others to tell people to come out and participate would be greatly appreciated. Because what we'd love is to have few thousand people participate in the survey. So anything you can do in that regard is great.
Who designed the Let's Talk survey? Did your company design it?
I beg your pardon?
Did your company design the Let's Talk survey?
We did.
And all on your own?
Yeah.
Okay,
But I should say, when you say all on our own, the requirements through the Municipal Act are quite thin. Most of the requirements that come out about what has to be done actually are derived from court cases about previous ward boundaries in previous places. So I think I said a couple of times, we have a process that we have to follow, and if we don't, then it could be subject to a challenge, right? So yes, it's done by us, but it's done by us informed by the rules that have to be followed. That's the biggest influence in the design of the process.
I'm happy that it's done by you.
Sorry. So I'm just any thoughts for me on 2 per ward or 3 per ward or 6 per ward?
I see we're one of the largest, but I personally, I think the more the better. You have relationships, you know the people better, you can express your concerns.
So that's back to the number of councillors in total, but I was actually wondering how many per ward. You actually like more per ward too?
I'll go the other way, just because I'm goofy. What about 2 per ward and bust Chatham up into 3 wards? Just for something to do. And I don't know whether that's just a plain dumb idea or what it is, but just to give you some variation. At 2 per ward, and roughly that's what.
So you could have 9 wards instead of 6 at 2 per ward. We'd have to adjust. We'd have to adjust the one that has 3. But yeah, I mean, we have to get 17. Right?
He's not talking about 9, he's talking about increasing Chatham to 3 wards, so that would add 2 wards. So right now we have 6, that would make it 8.
1 has got 3, so
Pardon?
one ward has got 3.
No, we have 6 wards. He's talking about, if I hear him right, having 3 wards in Chatham instead of 1, and 6 instead of 1. Right, Bill? So maintaining, are you talking
But
only
he
3
said,
whole?
he said 2 per. So that was. Did you mean 2 wards of 3 or 3 wards of 2?
Currently, we have, I gotta say this close to right, we almost have 5 wards of 2. And then we have Chatham as, I guess, 1 ward. I would make it into 8 wards, if you will, with 2 councillors per ward. And adjust the one at Blenheim a little bit and adjust the 3, or the 1 in Chatham busted into 3. Do I have any great vision here? Not at all, just a wild idea.
Yeah, no, that's what we're here for. That's good.
So one question back on the data. So back to Sudbury and that, how many wards do they have?
I think
those
it's
26,
I think they're 1 per, but I'd have to check.
or even the 26 that you show there.
Uh,
Was that broken down to show how many wards those?
Yeah, well, that's here.
was that?
What you see is there's 8 of the municipalities have 9. 6 of them have got 11.
Those are-
5 of them have got 13.
Those are council though, right? Not wards?
Yeah, but a lot of them are 1 per.
One per, okay, thanks.
Some of them are 2 per.
I like what Mr. Park said, but not if the Ward 6 as it presently stands, which is basically most of Chatham, not all, but most of Chatham, was divided up including parts of wards all surrounding it, so that there was a rural and urban part to every one of the 3 wards in Chatham. So that would reduce your size a little bit, not by a lot. It would reduce the size of council by 2. What I'm afraid of is if we go by strictly population, we are now at agriculture, and you'll hear me talk about agriculture a lot. We are less than 2% of the population, approaching 1, but that's not the case for economic contribution, both through tax and through business to the municipality. So that's my biggest fear, which I've said several times.
Yeah, that's okay though, because it's good to hear. The interesting thing is when we get into how we draw the wards, you'll see that the Supreme Court of Canada test doesn't require us to only look at numbers. So we'll get into that in a little bit more in greater detail.
I have an off-the-wall suggestion for you. You say we have 107,000 people approximately. If you put 18 into that, you get almost 6,000 people per counselor. If you kept your 18 and used each ward with 2 counselors, and when they got the 18 elected, then you would allow the 18 to choose the mayor. This is, we're not voting for a mayor, but the councilors vote for who the mayor is, who they think is the best one to lead the tribe.
Yeah, now that's not permissible under the Municipal Act. So in order to do that, we'd have to change the Municipal Act. But it's, what is interesting about what you say is that's the way upper tier government works, where they'll select a warden. So the idea that you have isn't as crazy as you say, but we apply that in Ontario in upper tier government, but not in local. So under the Municipal Act, the mayor has to be chosen by direct election. So,
Okay.
yeah. So you could change the Municipal Act, though. I can't.
Bang, it's done.
So I'm just going to plow ahead unless there's other comments on this, because it's actually going to get at some more of the stuff that I know you're interested in about the design of wards. The other question I have to ask, and this is Deputy Mayor. The Municipal Act does allow for council to have a Deputy Mayor position. And sometimes this is a rotating position where they just choose amongst themselves, or they do it on a pro tem basis, so that it rotates. And this actually kind of gets at the point the gentleman was just making. Sometimes they can choose things for themselves. So the Chatham-Kent uses a rotating vice chair to step in for the mayor at meetings, and the mayor has certain ceremonial functions that have to be done. So who stands in for the mayor if the mayor's away? But some places actually elect a person at large to be the deputy mayor. Sometimes people say the advantages of that are that it almost creates a farm team kind of environment for people who have a broader sense of the entirety of the municipality and experience running municipal wide. So that's one of the advantages that gets cited for that. Others say it's just handy for there to be another person who has that full perspective on the place. Others say it's very expensive campaigning, and it creates almost like 2 tiers among the council, or a 3rd tier if you count the mayor, but two tiers. Does anybody have any thoughts on whether an elected deputy mayor permanent position would be of value? Because we have to make a recommendation on it one way or the other. And I see there's a question online, so I'll just.
It was a direct response to the question you just asked. Scott Kilbride says, no, I do not think we need a deputy mayor.
Okay, thanks, Scott. And we got another comment.
I would support that same thought that Scott just made. No, I don't think we need a deputy mayor.
Okay.
Yeah, yes, I would support that as well. I do not think we need a deputy mayor.
Okay.
The way it works here is essentially there is a deputy mayor. As the mayor passes the torch around among the councilors, they also, among them, choose someone to do the budget, who is the budget master. And the mayor he's an ordinary councilor at that time. So you would have to say that our current council tries to be fair and tries to let everyone have a voice, which I would have to commend them for.
Thanks. Okay, well, we can move on from that one. And that leads us to the next, I'm just going to explain some of the background on the rules around the principles of effective representation. The Supreme Court of Canada, in a landmark decision called Carter a number of years ago, set out the principles of effective representation. And there are 5 factors that have come down to us. And I'm going to talk about each of them in turn. One of them relates to just give you a quick tour of what they are, and then we'll talk about each of them. The first is equality of representation by population. And so that's a straight up numbers, population, fairness question that we were talking about. And that's thought of today. So how is it today? But as I hinted, we also have to think about it over time, because municipalities are always changing and growing. So we also have to think about it tomorrow, and under the terms of reference, we're supposed to have as a term a horizon of 2 terms. So the third thing we're allowed to think about is geographic and topographical features within the municipality. That gets you into either important things like rivers or highways, which are clear and obvious demarcations. It's also land uses, so agriculture, for example. And other socioeconomic factors about how the community is used within that geography. Then there's community or diversity of interests within the municipality. Effective representation isn't supposed to ever cause people to be disenfranchised by the way we draw the boundaries. And then finally, patterns of communication and accessibility within the municipality. You try to group people who move within similar patterns within the municipality. So we can look at each of those 5 in turn. There's also a 6th, which has come out of the court cases, because it's kind of hard to follow 5 rules simultaneously and solve for all of them. So the courts have said, when interpreting the Carter decision, you can have regard to any of those 5, and you try and hit the best balance. And that's the 6th principle. Overall effective representation considers all of these things together. So equality of representation today, this answers the question, okay, we all would know that ideally it would be 1 person, 1 vote, and that all those votes would weigh equally. But that is really difficult to achieve in a sensible fashion, because A, because growth is always happening, and B, because people don't always distribute themselves conveniently across a geographic area. So some areas are more sparsely populated. So the court has said, hey, let's not have things be too badly out of whack, but you're allowed to go plus or minus 25% variation from the average. So we're going to take a look at Chatham-Kent's wards in a couple of minutes and see how we do on that. So you're good with plus or minus 25% as a starting off point. And that means there can be as much as a 50% swing between somebody that's plus 25 and somebody that's minus 25 in terms of population. So that's actually quite a variation that the courts have said is legitimate. So the second piece is not just today, but tomorrow. So what we might do is we might tolerate a slightly greater variance, or a variance that's a little bit worse, if we know that it's going to get better over time, because we plan for where it's going to be. So it's sort of like adjusting for shifts. And we got to think about between now and 2030. The geographical and topographical features, either man-made or human, could be rails, could be whatever. Community or diversity of interest. Effective representation also requires an examination of whether There's historic neighborhoods that need to be respected. So we ought not to draw a line that carves a place in two, for example. A place that's been around for 100 years shouldn't be carved in two. So that might be an argument against dividing up Chatham-Kent into multiple wards. On the other hand, it could be that you could find a way to do it that would make sense. So number 5, means of communication and accessibility. Whether there are any factors relating to transportation or communication patterns. Sometimes people say, look, the kids all go to high school in that direction, but the ward busts it up into two and orients us in another direction. Things like that can be quite relevant, particularly in places that were previously independent municipalities but are now amalgamated. And of course, Chatham-Kent is a place like that. So that's the 5th principle. And then the 6th is taken together, it's all a balance that you got to manage. So just off the top, we've already had one comment that the most important principle, I think that you said, that some have said, is that that we have appropriate respect for communities of interest, such as agriculture. But are there other principles of these ones that you think are particularly important or that particularly speak to you in the context of Chatham-Kent? Any thoughts? We may need the mic up here, so please. If nothing's jumping off the page, let me hold for a second and let me show you the current population estimates on the wards. Because this gets at how badly do you need a change. And so let me take you through the way to read this. And I just want to emphasize these numbers are going to change over this process. So if the next time you see us, you see we found a few thousand more people because we've got better data, don't be surprised. We're still scouring to get to the bottom of this. This data itself is based on estimates, including growth projections from the last census. But when we get the impact data, we suspect things will change a little bit. But this gets us into the game. And so what you see is you take, the first column is the name of the ward, and the second column is the number of councillors per ward, and that's the call outs there. Everybody's got 2 except for South Kent, which is Ward 2, that's got 3 councillors, and Chatham that's got 6. And then you look at the total population of the ward, and you can see that Chatham's a little less than half. Inside Chatham, the way Chatham is currently drawn by the ward map for Chatham. And so that's 42% of the population. But when you, to follow the Chatham example, the Ward 6 example, when you divide that 42,000 by population per councillor by ward, you can see the various percentages in the second orange column. That's the share of population per councillor per ward. And as one of you already speculated, it's sort of between 5,500 and 7,500 and ranging from about 5 to 7%. Now, if you look at the variance from the average, you can see that Chatham is plus 24, which means it's underrepresented. And you can see that Wallaceburg is about 14% overrepresented. So based on these numbers right now, you're kind of, like I've seen worse. You're not obviously over the edge. But given the way the growth patterns are going, it's likely that you will be by the second phase of the review, like by the 2030 election. It's likely that Chatham will probably be peaking up into the being more than 25% of variance. When the next time you see us, we will have detailed projections of what the implications are of the planned growth. So you're at the point where it's quite appropriate for council to have decided to take a look at it, but you're not flashing red. And like, it's interesting that like there's some places like Richmond Hill or we did one in another municipality a couple of years ago, and I think the first cut of it was about 36 or something like that. So it was just something had to be done right away. So this is kind of where it sits. We've got a small analysis page on each one of these, but I suspect like it just kind of breaks out each ward. So Ward 1, you see the population's 11,000, and it's interesting because like 5,000 is a pretty doable number for a councillor to manage. That's not a high volume of people to look after across the average. Like these are it's pretty effective representation from that perspective. Frankly, 10,000 is pretty doable too, but a lot of the part-timers are in that sort of 4,000 to 8,000, 9,000, 10,000 range. The Ward 2, 16,000, but it's divided 3 ways, slightly overrepresented. East Kent, 11,000, 2 councillors, slightly overrepresented, but if we could ever draw something where they were all falling in the sort of plus or minus, the numbers are no greater than 10%. That's a fabulous accident when that happens. But what you then have to do is make sure that you're not achieving it by screwing up the other factors. And so like the thing I really want to emphasize is it's easy to talk about how you have fun with maps and draw the boundaries to have the math work. But if you start screwing it up so those people don't feel a proper affinity to each other, or if you have to do it by cutting a neighborhood in half, and it just doesn't make any sense because the neighborhood has always been a neighborhood and they can't understand why they now have 2 different sets of councillors, that's not so good. Another thing I'd call out, because this is where we really love your advice. Look at the spot there, I guess at Kent Bridge, where Ward 4 and Ward 2 and Ward 3 come together. I imagine if you were really into municipal wards, you could have great fun running in a very tight circle and find yourself in 3 different wards by taking 3 different steps. I mean, there must be some place where you can step this way and this way and this way and be under the jurisdiction of different councillors depending on which way you lean. I'm very interested in knowing if around that area, if it just doesn't feel right. If we should adjust that, because that's dividing a legitimate community into 3 pieces, when if we moved it a little bit one way or the other, if it'd be more holistic. So that's a question that we'd like to seek input on.
There's so many people there, it doesn't matter.
I was gonna say the same thing.
Yeah, well, see, this is why I'm asking.
There are so many people in Kent Bridge, it doesn't matter.
So few, you mean?
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
So few.
Oh, I understand.
And if they're in this ward or that ward, you're on a different side of the line. We have had that for our federal and provincial reps. We run down the Thames River, which seems extremely unfair to the rest of Kent, whichever side you're on.
So another example, though, might be a similar problem might be on the boundaries of, anywhere on the boundaries of Ward 6, boundary of Ward 6 and Ward 2 or whatever. So this is some of the stuff we're going to be looking at. The other thing is, we're aware of areas where one side of the road is in one ward, the other side of the road's in the other, and it used to be that there was nothing on the other side of the road. And so now there is. So it makes sense to try and integrate those 2 things. So we'll be looking at stuff like that. So we're happy to take any comments today, or we're just happy to take them if you want to scroll on those maps that we provided you with, and you can let us know. Because like there's 2 types of changes. There's the ones that are just tweaks to make it better for people, just to avoid the accident of being on the wrong side of the road. There's other tweaks that are more significant, like redrawing things on a wholesale basis. So we got to be attentive to both, and just for the purposes of the record, like we're happy to hear about little changes and we're happy to hear about bigger changes. And if you have any, at this stage, if you have any recommendations for us about things that you think would make sense, that you'd like us to take a look at, we're more than happy to do so. Because, it's easy enough for us with the digital maps to be able to say, okay, run the numbers. How would it look if you split it here? Or how would it look if you split it there? So at this stage, we're just canvassing for ideas. And so I know the honorable member for the OFA had a great idea about, try and draw them so that everybody's got some component of rural. I mean, if you were to sketch out a way that that might look, we're happy to take a look at it. And if we can fit the numbers in so that it doesn't do violence to the plus or minus 25s, but captures some of the concepts that you'd like us to look at, we're more than happy to report on what that would look like by the time we've done our work. And if I could, if we just have the microphone back, I'll turn it over to folks for any comments they might have.
Now we got the green light. And I guess one comment I should make, and it's not really my comment, I hear it out in the country. I actually try to discourage this comment when I hear it, because I don't think the people that are talking this way understand the financial implications of it. But I hear rumors and talk of de-amalgamating. And so my question would be, has there been anyone that successfully de-amalgamated after they've amalgamated in the province? And I'm not saying I'm for that, I just hear the question. I can tell you that our roads and our bridges and our drains were better serviced when we were de-amalgamated.
So look, that is outside of my terms of reference. That is the sort of conversation. I am such a big municipal nerd. I enjoy having that kind of talk over a coffee, but I won't get into that tonight, other than to say, I think you could look at Halden and Norfolk as something that had been amalgamated, that de-amalgamated, but that has not tended to be the evolution of things in the province of Ontario. Like when I started in this business, there were 812 municipalities. There are now 444. I expect that number to continue to go down over my career, not to go up. So.
I don't know, I might talk to some Ottawa and Norfolk people now that you've told me that, but I think the cost would be phenomenal. I think it'd be a larger cost than amalgamating. So I'm fearful of that.
Look, I wouldn't want to steer you wrong. That was a very unique set of circumstances, which I don't see replicating, but you asked me the question and that's the answer. The part of my answer you should focus on is 812 to 444. And I really would talk about it all night over coffee, but that's not what I'm here to do. Other thoughts? Yes, please.
I'm just wondering how this, like, how did they come up with this?
Well, that's what you have now.
Yeah, but how?
Oh,
How was this come
well,
up with?
That's a really good question. There may be people in the room who know the secret history of it better than I. I think there was a considerable effort at accommodation that was made back at the time of amalgamation. I think that at the time, going from a larger number of municipalities down to the unified municipality, and so appropriate regard was had to trying to balance the population, but also to take into account the desire for ongoing representation from places outside of the center city of Chatham. I think it reflected the political compromises of the time. As I've showed, you can see I'm trying to be very diplomatic, right? I think that the other thing is, you typically wouldn't design a council to be that large. I know you came in a little late, but Chatham-Kent is a bit of an outlier in terms of the size of its council. You can see here are similarly sized municipalities from 70,000 to 220,000. That's the 26 municipalities that are larger, like 13 bigger and 13 smaller than Chatham-Kent. And the other quirky thing about Chatham-Kent is just how large it is geographically. So Chatham-Kent's got a bit of a large council. And so I think there was a desire to have a lot of representation, because when people looked at it at the time, they said it may be big for a single tier municipality, but it's a very effective and small council compared to what we had before, because I think you had well over 100 municipal representatives. Was it 18 or 21? 18? Yeah, so basically you had one representative for each of the old legacy municipalities that predated the amalgamation. So the magic in eight, sorry?
Through 23.
Or 23, yeah, that's what I thought. So they didn't all get one, but a lot of them got one, and I think the desire was that that was a good thing at the time. So the question today would be, looking at it with fresh eyes, is it still a good number? But it's a totally legitimate question. There's history and there's efficiency and all the other factors that go into it.
You had a question on the board a bit ago.
Yep.
That said, are we satisfied with the municipality the way it's set up today? And I would say, I think we are pretty satisfied with it. Yes, it's different than some of the parts of the world, but we are big geographically, and we have a concentration in Chatham of population. We have a small concentration in Wallsburg. The other areas aren't too far off in the numbers. They may be in time, but if you're going 2 elections or 8 years forward, I'm thinking they're pretty darn good. And Mr. Mayboom, who gave us what we have 25 years ago, was either awful lucky or awful smart. I'm not sure which way to credit him, but I'll say he was awful smart.
Thanks for your comment. Other thoughts? And so I'm just talking about how we can handle the rest of the evening. I know there's some people who came in late, and I'm more than happy to talk to you offline. I don't want to go over all the same questions again, but we can deal with your questions. But we take any comments we have from the folks who have been here since the start, and have whatever conversation we want to have. But for folks who did come in late, I can look after you separately too once we're done. There's a question online.
Yeah, it's a comment from Scott Kilbride. He says, I would suggest a smaller council of 13 and maintain a similar ward structure with adjusted boundaries and to balance populations. Number of council members per ward could vary as far as I am concerned.
Thanks, Scott. Other comments?
Getting my steps in today.
Yeah, what Scott had mentioned as well, I'm kind of struggling with the process a bit. I mean, if you're going to the number of councillors, that'll be the first step, is that correct? And then from there, you'll go on to the next part of it, to wards or whatever that would be.
But it's a great question. Our job as consultants is to try and impose some order on what could be a great big sloppy conversation, right? Because if you don't know how many councillors you're going to have, it really is hard to draw the wards and get them right. However, sometimes council defers the question about how big it's going to be, and so what we have to do is prepare a lot of options. And so the way the process will go is we will first prepare a report that's based on the input from the community and our own professional advice that'll have recommendations on council structure, and council will deal with that as they see fit. We will keep moving based on such instructions as we get to develop options which could give council the option of dealing whatever structural options they still have open at that time. And so if we get a clear answer, we want to go so imagine Scott persuaded them all to go with 13, then we would design options for 13. If they say, well, I don't know, design a few of us, a few options at a council size of 18 and show us what 13 would look like, then we might have to have 3 options that go one way and 3 options that go the other. Because it's a fair point that someone might not be able to decide how big a council they would be prepared to tolerate until they could see what the resulting ward structure would be. So our job is to run a clean and fair process that allows there to be the appropriate consideration of what the future would look like. But yeah, it's because you can have an almost infinite number of options with maps. And if you can have an infinite number of possibilities for how many can be on council, you can have a lot of permutations. And that's why we start off by saying, what would you like?
This is a little bit different than just being concerned with agriculture, which I generally am. But I do care about all of the municipality as well. But we do not have the ability to, for the most part, to increase our population in a lot of our wards. We are going to get smaller, other than our small towns that can grow. Chatham's going to continue to get grow, so a lot of the neighborhoods, the issues are similar, but they get more, by population, they get more votes. We can't do that in a lot of our, outlying 4 ridings that are not city centered. So it is an agricultural based comment, but we only get smaller, we don't get bigger. But yet the cities get bigger if you just look at people once again. But I guess it is an agricultural based comment.
It was a welcome comment. And
How is Windsor organized, do you know?
oh. Welcome to Stump the Consultants.
Because-
No, I think I know.
I think we should be benchmarking against other municipalities, and I think, London's huge, so not really a good comparable, but what's the population of the Windsor area, maybe?
Yeah, so Windsor's around
200,000?
220 or so.
So,
And I should remember how many are on Windsor Council, because I've done all kinds of work there, and I just can't remember if it's 13 or if it's 11. So I'm just gonna look. But, all right, if you can check in, I've got bad internet right now.
if you live in Windsor, does your counselor have to actually live in that neighborhood of that ward?
Nobody does. You know what, it's really interesting. It's obviously considered good manners to live in your own ward. And it's good politics, but it isn't essential. And it typically you have to reside in the municipality, but you don't have to reside in the ward.
Okay, thanks.
And you know what, you're right. We just in the interest of not having like a 5-hour treatise, because as charming and as interesting as we are, we don't want to throw so much information at you that you start walking out halfway through the presentation. That chart that I showed you of the 26 larger and smaller municipalities, I think Windsor would be on that one, because it would be just on the upper end of the 13 larger. Was it?
It's 10 councillors, 1 per ward, 6 wards.
So it is 11 with the mayor. Yeah. Go ahead.
I have a different question. My wife tried to do a survey, Let's Talk Chatham-Kent today, and she could get all the way to the bottom, push the submit button, and it went, and she did that about 3 times, and she got tired of it going to heck. So she called someone in the Chatham office here and asked them, and they had the same result. So I'm curious, are we supposed to be able to have input to Let's Talk Chatham-Kent past today, or is that the end?
No, it's just a start. The folks from the clerk's office can answer the problem, I think.
Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, but it didn't go live till 5 p.m. today.
Yeah, so
So we have the page up for information and to get everybody to the public meeting and so on, but the survey goes live or went live at 5 p.m.
It went live.
Yes,
Probably before that, no?
So we were too soon, were we?
you were. You're too quick on the trigger.
Okay.
No, this isn't the end of the process. This is just the start. If perhaps your spouse has excellent hacking skills, because I'm not sure they should have been able to access it, but if they did, it means they were extremely capable.
She's very smart, but not that smart.
I'll tell her you said that.
Yeah.
And we do not like surveys that go any more than you do, so we will make sure that that's not the case, but it's just gone live now.
Okay, very good.
I read deputy mayor was a consideration. I was wondering how many deputy mayors are in municipalities in Ontario.
So it's and I'll just explain what, actually, I'll tell you what, I'll answer that question for you offline. Just, I don't want to be repetitive for the recording that we're making, but we can talk.
Okay.
Any other questions about, anybody else have any opinions about whether the current system has other design features or whatever you'd like to see changed or?
I have a small request. We did not know what we were getting into when we came here tonight. We thought we could wander in at 6 o'clock and be right on top. I wandered in at 6:15 and I missed the front end of your discussion. For the people who may come on the 28th, could there be some format so that they might think there was a first hour and then there was a second hour, so that the people that are here get the benefit of your wisdom?
I think we're always open to changes in structure, so we'll take that back. And apologize for any inconvenience for starting. We were, obviously torn between wanting to get going right away for the people who were here. So, but
I understand that, but I didn't have any knowledge that I should be here at 6 o'clock. I thought I could just wander in and you'd have a bunch of stuff around and we'd go around and talk about it.
I understand.
That's the way we did it with Ontario Hydros and their new power lines.
It was more of a consultative thing. You just walked around and talked to different people, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
just so that we know what to expect a little bit more.
You have to expect the unexpected in a ward boundary review.
Okay, I'm at home then.
The funny thing about a ward boundary review is that it's so rule laden that, there's a bunch of questions that we have to ask. And it's hard to just say to somebody, what do you think of the current wards? Because the answer is compared to what? And so the main reason for having a structured presentation is really to help you understand what the rules are that have to be followed in ward design, so that you can give us your opinions in a structured way that can actually help us do our work. But I totally take your point. It's a busy life, and mostly we're just really grateful for everyone who comes. And I think it's hard work doing ward boundary reviews, but there's no reason they shouldn't be fun. So I actually really appreciate you participating when we are too. So, you had a question?
Yes. It's not a question, I'm just making a comment. I agree that I do not think that we need a deputy mayor. And coming in, I agree that we need less councillors. And it's been enlightening to hear the agricultural people, because I hadn't thought of that before, but that's my opinion.
Thank you. So, what we could do is we could wind up the formal portion, and what I can do is spend time with any of the folks who came in late, and like the gentleman was saying, have almost like a kind of second sitting in the restaurant this evening. We'll wind it up and thank you. So I should just do is just remind everyone that the survey did go live at 5, and so it will be up until at least until the middle of September, when the reason why we have to move forward with this is just to keep on the schedule to allow council to be able to have access to the data. So September the 12th. And on the Let's Talk, there's access to background material that is the content that I was working from this evening, as well as the online survey that'll let you have input. There's an opportunity to access a paper copy if you like. And for anybody who wanted to sort of look at the blow-up maps of the wards here, if you want to stick yellow stickies on them, if you have any thoughts for us to consider, you can give it to us that way. You can give it to us on the paper copies that you have, whatever's convenient for you. We really just want your input. And so what we'll be doing is our first step will be to write an initial report on council structure and provide initial feedback based on what we've heard on the wards, as well as our assessment of the math, as well as the population forecast. So that first report will be late September, early October. And then based on the direction we get from council, we'll go back and do a further round, and there'll be further consultation at that time, where you'll be starting to see us come back with designs and options for wards. And so it's at that stage that you'll start to be able to comment on, no, we don't like it here, or yes, we do like it there, and that kind of thing. So that'll be more October, November, and ideally it'll be done, or at least we'll have something final for council to consider in December. So that's what the next few months is going to look like. So tell all your friends.
Is there a way I can get your notes that you put up here for us?
They're on Let's Talk Chatham, and I'm persuaded they won't go make any sound effects on you.
They are on Let's Talk, Chatham-Kent. And how do I look for it?
We can just go offline and tell you that. I'm sure council can help.
Okay.
Okay, thanks so much. So I'm happy to talk to anybody who wants to talk about